Sam Presti with some updates on Thunder injuries, also the latest on Reggie Jackson's contract negotiations, and a surprise among the assistant coaches for the new D-League team. You're online with InsideThunder.com.
InsideThunder.com, powered by iHeartMedia, Oklahoma City.
Hi, I'm Randy Renner outside the Integris Health Thunder Development Center. Thunder General Manager Sam Presti spent about half an hour talking to reporters with an update on several things. He talked about injuries, off-season surgeries that some Thunder players had, their status coming into training camp. He also had some very interesting things to say about Reggie Jackson and some of the other players involved. We want to give you first Sam's opening statement where he addresses some of these things.
A couple things just to start with. First, want to thank everyone for coming. Obviously, it's kind of hard to imagine that this is going to be our 7th year here, you know. And one of the things we always try to do before we start any season is, you know, show some gratitude for the fact that we've been very, very fortunate since we've been here. We've embarked on a plan and a path that we're very, very proud of. But it doesn't happen without the commitment from the community at large and the efforts of everybody that supports the Thunder. So I always want to, and we always want to thank the people that support the team, no matter where they are. And we're looking forward to continuing to build on the tradition and the values that we've established. Some housekeeping before we get started. Perry Jones had a scope this offseason on his right knee. Has progressed very well. Will be ready for camp. Nick Collison had a scope on his left knee. He'll be prepared and ready to go. I was just watching him moments ago in the gym. Grant Jarrett is making steady progress from surgery on his left foot, and will start weight bearing shortly. But he's still going to be into the regular season before we get him back. And Perk just recently strained a quad, and that's going to be about 2 weeks, we think, before we reevaluate him. It just happened, so we'll know a little bit more, but he won't be ready to go right as camp starts. We'll see where he is when we get through there. A few things to talk about for the season as we get started, and then we'll get into some questions, if that's all right. We're really excited. I know I can speak for the group that's, you know, playing on the floor right now, and our coaching staff and everybody that's involved with the organization. We're really looking forward to this season. I think a couple things that make it that way is we have a good group of guys. We get a good group of people, and we've got a purpose, I think, as I explained earlier, with what we're trying to accomplish as an organization and as a team. And it's a wonderful thing to be around. I feel really, really blessed for that because I really enjoy the people that I work with. And I feel very fortunate. A couple things on how we want to approach the season. I think, number one, anyone that's followed our team knows that, you know, we have a defensive disposition to how we do things. It's been a primary driver to our success, both in the regular season, but more importantly in the postseason. And we need to maintain that defensive disposition as we continue to grow and evolve. And obviously, we want to continue to improve offensively. That was something we talked about at the end of the season. We want to build off of where we are, obviously continue to evolve by diversifying a little bit by from where we are, but we also have to maintain that defensive disposition because it's a competitive difference for us. I think every team in the league has competitive differences. That happens to be one of ours, and the metrics support the fact that when we're playing at a high level defensively, we're really tough to beat. We want to continue to evolve offensively as well, and I think we will. The way the team is designed, you know, we want to try to continue to evenly distribute the talent on the team so that we have consistent flow of playmaking, of scoring, but also, as I said before, have a defensive disposition throughout that allows our athletes, allows our skilled players to really take advantage of stops. And that's a big part of our formula, and we need to maintain that as we go forward, as we push forward in other areas. I think another thing for us is really important, and it's important for any high-performance organization or team, is to really be laser-focused on continuous improvement. Not necessarily get caught up in the outcomes that we're seeing, but really be focused on the things that drive our success, be focused on how we continually improve, measure ourselves versus ourselves, because whatever we accomplish over the 82 games, we want that to transfer. We want to transfer things into the postseason, and we want those things to be built upon, hopefully, as we have a chance to play in meaningful games in the spring. One thing that I think we did well, or that our coaching staff did an excellent job of last year, is continuing to build the depth of the entire roster, to create opportunities, to create different lineups by investing in and giving guys chances to grow within the season, so that when we do get into different situations or we hit an unforeseen circumstance, people are prepared if called upon. And I thought our coaches did an excellent job of that last season. And as a result, we're coming into this season knowing a lot more about Jeremy Lamb, about Andre Robertson, about Perry Jones. All of those guys really helped contribute to, our season last season, and have also made cases to become, continual contributors now and in the future. And I give a lot of credit to our coaching staff for recognizing that. As we talk about every year, we want to be playing our best basketball at the end of the season. And, through our time together, I think it's clear that in the NBA, because the teams are so good and the conference is so good and the league is so good, more games are lost than they're won. More games are lost than won in the NBA. And the margin's small. So the things that we have to focus on are the areas we can control. Our composure, our consistency, our concentration throughout the season, to not get distracted, to not get off track if we're not getting the immediate outcomes, because we're playing for something, much bigger. But it's something that needs to be focused on daily, and our concentration level has to be there, as things come out. So we just can't let that in. And I believe we're capable of doing that. I think our players, our coaches, our staff, everybody is excited. As I said before, I think there's purpose, but I think the purpose is in not what we want to accomplish, but really how we want to try to do things. And I would bring that back to the very beginning of my statement before we started this afternoon, which is we're trying to build an incredibly competitive championship level team that has a chance year after year after year. It takes purpose to do that. We can't look too far ahead. We have to stay in the moment, and we feel like we've got a great opportunity in front of us if we take it that way. It's worked to this point. We need to be disciplined to that, and I'm confident in the people we have to get us where we need to go.
And as you would imagine, the first question out of the box after Sam was through with that opening statement did involve Reggie Jackson and the team's status as far as his contract negotiations are concerned, and just how dedicated the Thunder are to keeping Reggie Jackson. Here's what Sam Presti had to say about that.
Well, I think we've been really clear about his importance to the team. We see him as a core member of the team, as a core member of the organization, and we're gonna put our best foot forward, and I believe he will as well, to see if we can figure something out. As we've talked about, these things are, when we have a lot of experience in this, in this realm now, these things aren't easy to do. But we're going to give it our maximum, best chance to make it happen, knowing that if it doesn't, we come back at it next summer and we pick it up again. If it doesn't happen, all it means is that it hasn't happened yet. And we're looking forward to continuing to progress in those conversations.
Do you feel that some of the contracts being levied out this summer, even Bledsoe yesterday, has kind of raised his market value?
Well, I think there's two different things in that respect. I think those are free agent contracts. What we're looking to try to do is an extension, and I think if we don't get an extension done this fall, then we roll into free agency, and every year is different in that respect. But we want to invest in Reggie. I mean, we've not a lack of clarity in that regard. Figuring out how we best do that is my job, and I'm going to do everything I can because I believe that he's a great example of a lot of things that we've tried to do here. Drafted, he's been developed by our coaches and our support staff, and the next step is to keep him with us for a long time, and we're excited about the opportunity to try to do that.
You said last spring that at the time there was no consideration of trading him before the deadline in October. Is that still the case?
Yeah, that's just not something that we've considered. I think with him in particular, he's a guy that we see being here, for a long time. It may not be something that we get solved, in October. But as I said before, the system is set up to give you an early opportunity to try to do that. We want to try to take advantage of that. We'd like to try to get things done in advance if possible. If not, we pick it up, next season and we do it in earnest again. But we believe he has a chance to be a very impactful player here. We don't look at him as anything other than a core member.
His stated desire to want to be a starter, how troublesome is that considering you already got a pretty good one at point guard?
I wouldn't characterize it as troubling at all. I would be troubling to me if he wasn't confident in himself and didn't see himself as a very important player to this team. At the same time, we've never ever in our history here had a situation where we've had any issues regarding what's most important. And the most important thing, once training camp starts, is winning and focusing on how you contribute, what your contributions are, and how you best can be maximized by the decisions the coaching staff make. And I would be surprised if Reggie is focused on anything other than how he best impacts this particular team, because it's a jigsaw puzzle about how you maximize the group that you have. And we use optimize or maximize the group that you have. And for us, we have always had a defensive disposition to begin games and a really explosive bench group that usually grows and gives our coaching staff a lot of options and matchup opportunities, per their choice as the game evolves. Reggie is a major impact player for us, and he's a guy that helps us sustain our attack. But we'll have to see how the best way to optimize the team is this year, but it's not troubling to me at all.
Where do you see his continued growth as a player specifically?
Well, I think the best part of his game, quite honestly, and that we haven't necessarily realized at this point, is his passing. That was a thing at Boston College that I felt like made him a difference maker. He's got great physical attributes. He's got an outstanding work ethic. And that's a big reason why we think he's a guy that we can move forward with. But he can pass the ball. He can make the game easier for others. And I think that's the next progression for him. I have a lot of confidence in that.
You worry about this if you don't get him signed by the 31st? That's a kind of an overwhelming, or just a storyline throughout the season. People asking about it, and what you feel in the offseason, you get him signed. I mean, how do you?
Well, I think number one, if we get to that point, we'll handle it appropriately. Like I said before, in our organization's history, we've always focused on the things we can control, and the expectation is professionalism and consistency and putting the team first and modeling that behavior. I have a lot of confidence in him. I don't believe that's going to be an issue for us. But again, you got to put that in its place and focus on, what I talked about at the beginning of the press conference: continuous improvement, understanding who we are as a team and what our identity is, playing to that on any given night, no matter who we're playing, where we're playing, or when we're playing, and recognizing that those are the things that drive winning. It's going to take everybody. It's going to take everybody. Always does.
How do you feel about guys playing in international competition in the offseason, especially given Paul George's injury?
Well, it's a delicate question, I think, because obviously that's a tremendous opportunity for any player. And the teams don't really have a say into what the players do or they don't do. And we'll always be supportive when it comes to those types of situations. But it's tough, I think more than anything, it's a good lesson and a good understanding that anything and everything happens in the NBA. Your station in the league can change in a blink of an eye. And I think it's the organizations and the teams that have the ability to adapt and adjust when the unforeseen, rears its head is really the tale of how to establish a sustainable team. I think the Pacers and their infrastructure and the way they handle and conduct their business are going to do a great job with that. But it's unfortunate, but it's also a reminder to all of us that, this is a delicate and fragile, business and industry. And you have to be ready for those things to happen. But I think it's how you respond. And the Pacers are a great organization with tremendous history. And they're going to support their player and do a wonderful job with that.
Is there a part of you that was relieved if Kevin decided to step away for whatever reason? I mean, after seeing what happened to Paul, it was kind of like...
Well, again, I think they're separate issues in the sense that, injuries are part of sports. You can't control for them. We have a philosophy, within our building that if we control what we can control, we'll have our hands full enough. Our hands will be full enough with just the things we can control than to start allowing our thoughts to become facts. So we're just more focused on the situation that's been presented to us. And Kevin decided not to play. We just rolled his training program, or his off-season training program, into a more intensive conditioning and fitness-based program, knowing that we were going to have him for a longer period of time, and we'd support him either way.
Sam, one of the things that Kevin said when he did walk away was he wanted the rest, which when you talk about focusing on the postseason, I assume having a fresh Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, those sorts of things are important. How much is that something that's been talked about, will be monitored and be a focus this year?
Sure. Well, I'm glad you asked the question that way, because it gives me a chance to clarify myself. We're not focused on the postseason. We're focused on doing things on a day-to-day basis that help build our habits so that if we do get to the postseason, they transfer and that we're playing our best basketball at that point in time. I think the way that happens, though, is that you don't focus on the postseason. You focus on the things that are in front of you and making those decisions on a daily basis that help build your standard of play. In regard to the question on rest, Jenny, clearly, the NBA season is a grind. It's an incredible thing, and with the added break this year and with the All-Star break, that's had some interesting effects on the schedule for everybody. So I think and medicine and science has come so far in recent years in terms of applying those things to player performance. So we look at all that stuff. Clearly, we want to be playing our best basketball at the end of the year, and those will be decisions that Scott will make. But I know he's looking at them because we have a group and a team that has the depth to sustain through 82 games and prepare. So that'll be something that we monitor.
Sam, what was your thought process of Steven Adams' summer? Your monitoring of him. How has he had his summer? What do you think about it, and maybe his goals for this year? Well,
I had a chance with Mark Bryant, one of our assistant coaches, to go down to New Zealand and spend some time there. It was a great thing. Always like going to see where the guys are from and kind of meet them where they are. I had a chance to meet a lot of the people that have affected his life. Headmaster at Scott's College, which is his preparatory school. One of his guardians, a woman named Blossom, who I'd heard about during all of our background research and background work about this wonderful guardian that had come into Steven's life and really helped him. And I think meeting those people is great because it really helps you understand. These guys are players, but they're people. And everybody has a story and everybody's got a path. And I think the more you can understand that, I think the more you can support and encourage them during the different peaks and valleys they face. I think Steven is an emerging player. There's going to be ups and downs for him. Just like every guy that we've had here. We've had a very fortunate run of developing young players, starting back, from the day we got here. None of them have had a linear path to success. They've been trials and tribulations. There's been overcoming of different obstacles, and it's how you deal with those, I think, that really determines your wherewithal and your ability to be a consistent performer at this level. I believe Steven has those attributes, but until he has the setbacks and he's able to build a body of work that shows us that he's going to continue to build through those things, we have to reserve, our expectations. But we couldn't be happier to have him as a part of the organization because of his qualities as a worker, a quick learner, a competitor, a great sense of humor, and a team-first individual. Those are the things that we really want to aspire to be as an organization, and he happens to hit the marks on a lot of them.
What are your thoughts about those that have him penciled in as accelerating to a starting level or a major contributor to the team?
Well, again, I think those things have to be determined, once training camp starts and the season starts. I know this. I think the conversation on starting or not starting, again, is conversation, because the real objective for our team and any team is how do you optimize the group that you have over 48 minutes to maximize a cohesive group. And that's a process. And, we've had and will continue to have players that obviously, want to have more or deserve more opportunity. And it's a good issue to have. But how it's cohesively put together, the ability for people to, understand that what we're working towards is bigger than one individual, and there's necessary sacrifices you have to make to win at a high level in this game, in this sport. And we'll see where that leads us with Steven, but I have no doubt that he'll be a contributor for us this year.
Sam, speaking of starters, do you have a pretty good idea in your head as to what's going to happen at the two-guard spot as to who's going to start, or could that be determined by what happens in training camp?
Again, I think, we have to see how those things play out. I think, again, it's not so much the starter as it is how the team blends, how it's best optimized. As I said earlier, the team is designed to continue to have a defensive disposition with the ability to have flexibility off the bench offensively, just given the way that the team's constructed and some of the horsepower we have in the front unit. With that being said, I don't think that there's a clear-cut person. Scott has to make those determinations, but we need to have a defensive disposition, whoever is playing that position, because it's been a key driver, a key success indicator for our organization, for our team going forward.
Following up on that, could that be a situation where maybe rather than one person, the same person starting every night, that maybe depending upon who you guys are playing, you could have somebody different in there?
That's really a question for Scotty. Scott has always done an excellent job of taking a look at how the team is constructed and figuring out how do I get the most out of this group, play to the strengths of the group to make sure that everybody's being maximized. It's a 48-minute game, and how we distribute, our talent and deploy our talent over that 48 minutes, but still have a core set of general principles, regardless of who's on the floor, is really important. And I believe in him to figure that out. And that's a big reason why we've had our success. Is he's always focused on the defensive end of the floor, but also I think he does a great job of taking and looking at different situations once the game is in the balance, of using the offensive opportunities and matchups that are at his disposal. So it will be something that gets hashed out at camp. But as I said earlier, we understand who we are. We understand that we have to continue to grow. We have to continue to evolve and diversify. But we also have to recognize that one of our competitive differences is the defensive disposition of the group in total, our speed, our size, our athleticism, and our competitive will. And I would say we need to retain those things and look to evolve, on the margins so we can be a little bit better.
You said at the end of the season, I think kind of like your exit, you were basically saying with Andre Robertson, you got to figure out how to utilize what he can do.
Mm-hmm.
What went on this summer to help that figure out something?
Well, I think, with him in particular, and I would say that for any player, Myron, I mean, it's all about, figuring out how to play to everybody's strengths, and that's what I mean by cohesion and a kind of complementary nature of the group. And it's not an easy thing to do, but I give our coaches a ton of credit. They started a process in the offseason, carried it over into Summer League, where, if you saw Robertson in the Summer League, he was scoring a variety of ways. Cuts, backdoor cuts, offensive rebounds, transition, playing to his strengths. At the same time, he's continued to make progress, just fundamentally through the work of our coaching staff. I think Perry Jones and Jeremy, in particular, those guys have also benefited. I think Jeremy Lamb has, set a standard for time spent in this gym in the offseason in Oklahoma City. Him, Perry, and Andre were consistent at, every single day. For the most part, it seemed like I look up and they'd be out there. And that's what we're looking for. That's part of the environment, part of the culture that's been developed by our flag carriers, Collison, Westbrook, Durant, Ibaka. These other guys are taking that torch and taking their off-season training incredibly seriously. And I think they've all benefited from it.
One other thing that people always wonder about the Thunder, would they sign a big-name free agent to come in? But one attitude that the Thunder has always kept, and Sam Presti talks about a lot, developing the players who are here. And no development is better than what the Thunder have done with their big three: Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka. All three of those guys drafted by Sam Presti. And when Sports Illustrated came out just recently with their top 100 players in the NBA, those three guys were among the top 20 players in the league. The Thunder, the only team in the NBA with 3 players within the top 20 and 2 within the top 5. Sam Presti had some more interesting things to say about the continued development of Kevin, Russ, and Serge.
Well, we're obviously we're really pleased with those guys, not only with what they've accomplished, but also who they are as people, competitors, and ambassadors. They embody a lot of, if not all of the qualities that we espouse to try to build our organization with. At the same time, they've set the standards that we work by on a day-to-day basis here, because they're the first through the door. They'll do a great job with that for many, many years. I think one of the things that sometimes we lose sight of is the fact that there's been an accelerated amount of progress with those guys in particular. I don't know the numbers on this, but the amount of playoff games that those three guys have played together in, those would be, 5 years together with those particular three? Incredible amount of experience. I think, again, that's one of our strengths as a team and organization, is the accumulated experience of our core players, and the fact that, we feel like if we do things correctly this season, we'll have another chance to be in the postseason and hopefully impact that. But those guys have accelerated the curve a little bit, and we live within that window of knowing that we're a very successful team, a very successful organization, but we want to keep getting better. And we might do things a little different, but we do them different because we want to be better and not benchmark our way to the middle.
Sam, because of that experience, do you feel like because of that experience, those guys, are they in their prime now? Do you feel like they're still getting there? I mean, how do you
I think their best basketball is in front of them. But we've been saying that for 7 years, and I think we'll keep saying that for a little while, because there's a few attributes that those guys possess that I think are the foundational DNA of an organization. 1, work ethic. 2, competitive will. 3, humility and an understanding that there's always work to be done. And I admire that in any person, and I'm really proud that the guys that are the pillars of our organization, they approach things day by day, every day. And I believe that's what gives this organization a chance to do something incredibly unique in terms of having an opportunity of championship contending basketball for a very long time. With that said, we can't get distracted by that. We have great opportunities right in front of us this season that we want to maximize, that we want to understand and capture. We have to honor this season, even with our excitement about what the future holds for us.
I was saying, Sam, you said a few times today that the Thunder organization is different than others. In what way do you see this being a different type of organization compared to either one that you've been with or seen?
Well, I don't say different in a sense of necessarily better than anybody. I think more than anything, what we're trying to build is a sense of self, a pride, a sense of pride in place. I think we want to have people understand when they see the Thunder logo now and for many years to come what it is that we're trying to do. And we're pretty transparent about that. I understand there's a bias for action in today's society, but we're content with driving a path to what we feel is sustained excellence. We got to do a lot of work on a daily basis to stay on that path, to understand that we all have work to do. But we're very confident in the people and the place, and the combination of our team, our players, the community that we're in, capturing that, honoring each season, respecting the opportunity to be in the NBA, and I think knowing who we are, and knowing that who we are is in evolution. We're certainly not done. We have we're going into 7 years of history, and a lot of the teams that we're competing against have 60. But we focus on the things that hopefully will build a championship level team for many, many years. We've been focusing on that since July of 2008.
Sam, you lost a couple guys in the offseason, some veterans in that locker room, Derek and Karan and Tabo. You just talked earlier about the maturation of your core stars. Does that sort of ease the blow of losing some of those locker room leaders?
Well, I think, obviously those guys had great impacts. We talked in the off season about the NBA changing in the sense that continuity has become a lost currency. It's very hard to maintain that given the rules. You're going to lose players. There's going to be change. I think how you adjust and adapt to that, how you're able to absorb loss, but also add without having to lose players is important. I think it also breeds opportunity for others, and I think there might be gaps, but I think those gaps will be filled by capable, in regards to the intangibles, capable people. I think Anthony Morrow brings a toughness and a professionalism and a real sense of who he is as a player. I think Telfair is a guy that is a tremendous worker. He fits in terms of this guy's just a incessant worker and professional in terms of how he goes about his work every day. And I don't think you can disregard the presence of Collison, Perkins, and Kevin and Russell now going into, the middle of their careers. I think there's a corporate knowledge of how we try to go about our business that each person, we're all responsible for protecting and making it better.
Will Josh Eustace be in the D-League camp?
In the D-League camp? Yeah. Yes.
A lot of controversial topics going around right now, and a lot of people taking to social media to comment on them. Given what's going on, you mentioned Paul George earlier, do you guys talk to players? You can't control them because they're grown men, but do you talk to players about how to handle that kind of stuff? And what do you see yourself doing going forward on that?
Let me make sure I understand the question. You mean just how players react to different events? I think the guys are going to interpret things and express themselves. We've been very fortunate. We have a group of guys that, understand that their voice carries quite a bit. And I think they're very thoughtful about when they speak and how they speak. At the same time, I mean, people make mistakes too. And we have to be understanding of that. And I think, I can't think of them off the top of my head. I'm sure I've got plenty of examples of mistakes that I've made or mistakes that our players have made. And I think it's how you respond to those. And I would like to think that when we do make mistakes, our players make mistakes, or anybody involved in the organization, that we own it and we move on. But that's the world we live in today. And there's a lot of benefits to social media, and there's also some things that you got to be careful with. Our players, I think, have done a great job of it. I think Matt does a good job of talking to them about how to help them in different situations. We're here to support the guys, if we can. But we're not going to tell them what to say or how to look at the world.
Based on what you saw of Mitch McGarry this summer.
I'm sorry?
Based on what you saw of Mitch McGarry this summer, Summer League and everything else, do you think he can have an impact on your team this year? Like, Steven Adams, I think, had a big impact on rookie year. Can you see him doing something similar? Or?
Well, I wouldn't want to speculate too much just because we haven't seen him in camp yet. And he had a very productive summer league. I think what he did in summer league was demonstrate that he has a skill set that is a little different, that I think gives, again, a little more versatility, some things that maybe, we haven't had in terms of being able to pass the ball and use the ball a little bit. He's got a lot of room to grow. I think he's going to benefit a great deal by going through camp with the guys that we have. It will be, I think, a learning curve for him. I think Nick will be a tremendous person for him to be around, and because the great thing about Collison is, he thinks it's his. He really tries to serve the organization and help people. And he, feels like a sense of responsibility to try to impart some of that wisdom, on some of these younger players. Perk the same way. And those types of people are really invaluable. I know Matt wants me to stop, but I'll make one other point on this. We're going to announce the coaching staff for our assistant coaching staff for our D-League team. One of the names that you're going to see on there is Royale Ivy. And, he made a significant decision to start his post-playing career with us. So, I don't know why that's getting to me, but I think, when you're trying to build an organization, there's a lot of firsts. And a guy like Roy had a huge impact here. And for him to make a choice to start with us on the next phase of his career, I think those are really special things for an organization like the Thunder. And, he's on the floor right now working with guys, taking some of the things that he took from us and imparting them back onto some of our players. And when those things happen, I think it makes you realize how young an organization we really are. We've accomplished a lot. We've been through a lot. We've been faced with a lot. It's made us stronger. I think it's made us more durable. I think it's made us more resolved. But we're still finding our way in a lot of ways. And I think having Roy here is a great statement because he's helped us, and I think hopefully we can help him start his coaching career.
Don't often see Sam Presti get as emotional as he was when he was talking about Royale Ivy joining the Oklahoma City Blue coaching staff, the new nickname, of course, of the Thunder's D-League team. Remember, Monday is Thunder Media Day, and we will have our full Inside Thunder crew down at Chesapeake Energy Arena. We'll be posting the interviews that are done down there with Scotty Brooks, Kevin Durant, everybody involved with the Thunder. And then training camp begins on Tuesday. So for all your Thunder information, videos, blogs, all kinds of things, keep it right here on InsideThunder.com.